Welcome everyone, I'm Swamp Monster and welcome to Game On. Today's game I'm playing is Spider-Man 2000. So let's swing into action and play some Spider-Man. So with Sony now revamping Spider-Man in the MCU and the brand new standalone Spider-Man game coming only to PS4, I decided to go back and review Spider-Man's first 3D outing, Spider-Man 2000. The game was developed by Neversoft and published by Activision using the Tony Hawk Pro Skater engine. The game was later ported by different developers to various systems including the N64, PC, Dreamcast, and Game Boy. Today's version we'll be playing is the PS1 version of the original release, and the only reason why is that because basically the PC version is very buggy. The 64 version is basically the same, but the PS1 still has better controls. And then on top of that, I do not own a Dreamcast copy. If I did, this would be the one I'd be reviewing today. But since I don't, the PS1 will do. So we start the game off with Peter Parker at an E3 press conference for Doc Ock. No, not that E3 press conference, that'd be awful. No, really, for some reason Doc Ock is having a science expo about him. But what does he have to announce at this expo? A new science thingy that can stop aging, or even better, cure cancer? No, he just said that he's not evil anymore and he's ready to help his fellow mankind with science.
I, Dr. Otto Octavius, vow as a scientist and businessman that my duties to humankind will be fulfilled. Thank you.
But not long after that, a fake Spider-Man steals Doc Ock's science thingy.
Who dares? Face me, coward! Face a worthy foe. Spider-Man?
So yeah, after fake Spidey breaks Eddie's camera,
No!
and then he has a Vietnam flashback and turns into Venom.
Come on! Can't fight him anymore!
So after those Vietnam flashbacks, we basically cut to the main baddies of the game, which they tried to hide, but...
Phase 1 completed. Let us begin Phase 2.
And if you can't tell who they are, it's obviously Doc Ock and Carnage. They don't really try to hide this mystery very well, especially when they have Doc Ock talk. So pretty much basically we start the level off with Stan the Man narrating himself.
Welcome, true believers and newcomers alike.
And then Black Cat telling us that there's a bank robbery going on. Now, this is basically the start of the tutorial level, which is fantastic. This tutorial level is one of the best PS1 tutorial levels you can get. It basically does not force you to do tutorials. You can skip the entire thing and just swing to the mission, and that's what I like about this game. I think that's fantastic about this game. It's a little bit ahead of its time. It's like if you played this game before, you can skip the tutorials. But speaking to tutorials, let's go over the controls. You have your basic jump, your punch, your kick buttons. Then you have your swinging, which acts more like a double jump, which you have two swings, so it extends your jump. And for that, you have your webbing button. You can basically tie up enemies and webs. And on top of that, you can also do combos, but you got to be careful with these combos because it makes you have to look out for more cartridges. And that's the downside. You can run out of web. This is not your Sam Raimi Spider-Man.
Up and away, Web!
Now, what these combos do is very important in these games because these combos actually pack a more punch than your normal punch and kick. You got your basic pull somebody towards you with the webbing, which it's a very common thing in all the Spider-Man games. Then on top of that, you have a spider shield where you cover Spider-Man in a webbing shield, and you decide to let go, or if it gets weakened, you can explode it around you, causing massive damage. It's very good for groups. Then you have your web punching. Spider-Man coats his fist in webbing, and it causes more damage than his normal punch, which is very, very useful. It uses a lot of webbing, but I really love it. I enjoy that little bit of extra punch because it's very useful towards the end of the game. And then you have, last but not least, the ability to shoot webbing torpedoes. That's right, you have torpedo webbing. It helps a lot during the Venom fights later on. It's more of a strategy a lot of people use. I didn't use a lot of it in that fight though, but I did found out about it when I was on the second Venom fight, so it helped me a lot. But basically that is the combat, but I do also want to touch something a little bit more important about this game. The camera controls suck. Majorly because this game does not let you control the camera really, besides just hitting the left button to reset the camera, and that only works half the time. See, when you do that, sometimes it resets it on its back like normal, which you expect for a game. But if you're faced to the wall, it can sometimes put it in awkward positions where you really can't see what's going on, which, if you have an enemy near you, can lead to instant death. So basically that kind of sucks. And for a game that makes you feel like Spider-Man, which I agree, this game makes you feel like Spider-Man. It has the perfect combo controls. It's still stiff. It's not updated to current generation, obviously. But back then, this game feels like you playing Spider-Man, just with a crappy camera crew right behind your back. But the good news is, though, they do have an aim button. The aiming button lets you aim towards and lets you swing twice to that area, which is very useful. And also useful when you want to web certain areas. It's especially useful during the sewers levels, activating those switches. I just pretty much climbed to the very ceiling of the sewer and just hit all the switches at once. Made my life very easy. So after going to the rooftop, Spidey ends up stopping the bank robbery and putting the bomb in a safe. And while he does that, he also does a funny duck waddle. After the bank robbery, we basically have a few levels and then 2 boss fights, which one involving Rhino, and it was a very basic boss fight, pretty much having you dodge Rhino and having him go headfirst into the wall until you pummel him to death. Very basic gameplay. And then the second one, and this one's so freaking weird. Pretty much this one starts off with JJ calling Peter Parker and telling him to call 911 because the Scorpion broke into his office. Which, why didn't you call 911 yourself, JJ?
Shut up and dial 911!
But pretty much after that scene, you have to race towards JJ before Scorpion gets him, even though Scorpion got him already, or at least in the same room in the previous scene.
Shut up and dial 911!
But yeah, it's not very a complicated boss fight to fight Scorpion. All it is just you pretty much beat him up, and then it's over. After that, Venom randomly hijacks the big screen in New York, which I don't know how he knew Spider-Man would be around that, but apparently he did, revealing that he kidnapped Mary Jane. After that, you fight Venom. It's a very basic fight. He goes invisible, basically doing Predator mode stuff, and really, I kind of died, and I kind of sucked at this fight at this point because I didn't know that you can just cheese it by using the webbing torpedoes, but I did fight him, and I did have a little fun fighting him. It's just really weird when he licks you with his tongue.
Rose!
After that fight, you end up chasing Venom down to the sewers after going through the very challenging water puzzles. God, I hate water puzzles. Anyways, we get to fight Venom, and it's the basic same fight from up top, but this time you gotta really stop these valves from drowning Mary Jane. It's a very easy fight. This time I actually survived. I actually didn't the first go, but I fell through the floor. So after we defeat Venom, we pretty much rescue a really upset Mary Jane.
Parker! Just get me out of here now!
So after saving Mary Jane, you're on the rooftop with Venom, basically talking about teaming up. And this is the part where I realized the people that wrote this story does not know Venom at all. Pretty much, they got an idea that Venom is an idiot.
Bummer.
Yes, that's right. The most vicious, feared villain of Spider-Man, basically the alternate version of him, is belittled by saying 90 quotes.
You're in the doghouse now, dude.
I know it's tongue-in-cheek type stuff, but this kind of pisses me off.
What a wuss.
But yeah, they basically agree on teaming up and going to the Daily Bugle to find out information on who could potentially set up Spider-Man for stealing Doc Ock's invention, which we already know that it's Doc Ock and Carnage because of the shadows. They get to the Daily Bugle and come to find out that Carnage unleashed some symbiotes.
Now what? Spidey, whoever's behind all this, got symbiotes.
So pretty much once you get down to the basement of the Daily Bugle, basically you end up fighting Mysterio, who, come to find out, was the actual fake Spider-Man.
At last, I will crush you once and for all!
So once you start fighting him, it's an easy fight. The only downside is majorly the camera controls still suck. Majorly because you can't see above you. So you have a vertical fight that you can go down and up and down, and you're just pretty much shooting the webs on his little weak points that he has. Now once he gets to the second stage of his fight, it gets even more weirder. Yeah, that's right. You just saw it correctly. Laser nipples. Was the development team like this? Oh man, I need a way to figure out to make this fight more enticing. Hey Frank, you got any ideas for this Mysterio second stage fight? How about some laser nipples? That might be a good idea. Thanks, Frank. I'm glad he's our janitor. But yeah, after defeating Mysterio, he spills the beans and reveals...
Where are they coming from?
Go then. On the waterfront. Warehouse 65. A secret passage. If only I could watch them destroy you.
Spider-Man ends up going to the warehouses and ends up getting stopped by the Punisher for a second, which is the third random cameo in this game, which I guess technically second because you can't really count Black Cat because she's involved in the story too because she got randomly kidnapped. Did I forget to mention that? But he's the second cameo really. Him and Daredevil randomly cameos in this game, and there's a few other, but I'm not going to say it at the moment because it's at the very end of the game. So basically once we get to the warehouse, we end up finding a couple more symbiotes we got to fight in there, and then finally getting to the very bottom of the place with Doc Ock and Carnage revealing that they were behind it all.
Spider-Man,
Doc Ock?
we will work as one. It is a new world. Humanity needs the skills that my technology will give them. Symbiosis is the only way.
I should have known a reformed Doc Ock was too good to be true.
So after those two easy fights, you end up facing off with a new custom created character that hasn't really been done in other medias. I think my research was right. It was done in one show and that was it. And it's Monster Ock. It makes sense having Doc Ock and Carnage combine themselves. It is freaking fantastic, and I love it. The only downside is you don't really fight him. You really just do the crash run and run away from him. The angle shots are fine, but when you're going forward, you really can't see in front of you. It's the most easiest boss fight out of the entire game, and I actually pretty much appreciate it because after fighting Doc Ock and Carnage, I really just needed a break for a second. So pretty much after Spider-Man runs away from Doc Ock from the explosion and let the explosion engulf him, and still say he somehow survived even though it looked like he might be dead, Peter. You might want to actually go grab him first before knowing he might be alive.
Parker, shut up and dial 911.
Captain America shows up with Venom and Black Cat, and it ends with them mostly taking a part of a poker game with Captain America, Spider-Man, Punisher, and Daredevil, which sounds like a joke to me, to be honest with you. But it's fantastic, and I actually enjoy that ending. It's very humorous. And then on top of that, he has Black Cat and Johnny Storm dancing the night away, which is super random. And that's actually what's good about this game, is they do have some funny moments that's just out of nowhere. Even though some of the characters are written the way I wouldn't have written them, they're kind of fine. Even though I don't like the Kid Venom. That's the only thing that bugs me about the story. And then on top of that, it kind of basically gives away the mystery at the very beginning of the game. If I was them, I would actually make the game a little bit more mysterious, not even showing Doc Ock's claw grabbing the handle. Majorly, I would have had Carnage grab it, and that way his hand would still have been red, and then you would think the mystery Spider-Man would have done it. But no, they decided to have Doc Ock's hand grab it and show both their shadows that you can clearly tell they're models. I mean, maybe that's me overlooking it or going way too in detail of it, pretty much being a fan of comics. but that's how I feel. So I bet you're wondering how I'm going to scale all these games that I'm going to be reviewing in the future. Well, majorly there was a show that I used to watch as a kid called X-Play, and it did a scale system 5 out of 5. So pretty much I'm going to do that. I pretty much think that 5 scale system works way better than the 10 scale system, because what's the difference between a 7.2 and a 7.3 game? Yeah, like, does it make no sense? So basically, I'm going to give this Spider-Man 2000 a very lenient score. I could give it a worse score majorly because how outdated it is, but I feel like nostalgia kind of hit me a little bit. So I'm going to give this game a 3.5 out of 5. If you haven't played it, I'd still recommend going back and trying it out for yourself and at least playing it, because the game is not that long. It took me at least 9 hours to beat and play through. Plus, on top of that, there's some nice collectibles, plus you get different Spider-Man suits, and if you beat the game without running out of webs, you get the nice black suit, which is awesome in my opinion. So, thank you for watching this video, and remember to game on.
Where, what a wood!